My ex-girlfriend stole my security credentials to impress her new guy, so I made sure she ended up destroying her own life. Sup, Reddit. I work at one of the busiest ports in the country, and my ex-girlfriend decided to speedrun a criminal record because she wanted to impress some dude with a YouTube channel. I'm Jared, 26 male. Here's what went down. They don't pull you out of a job mid-shift unless something's already on fire. And nothing good ever starts with a supervisor walking towards you with that look on his face. I was elbow deep in a reach stacker's hydraulic system at Pier J, covered in grease, sweating through my third shirt of the day, when I saw Paul cutting across the yard. The kind of walk that says somebody's day is about to get very complicated. Behind him was a woman I didn't recognize. Business casual, lanyard that screamed compliance, scanning the yard like she was cataloging every face, every movement, every potential problem. I know what that energy looks like from 100 yards. It was 2:40 p.m. on a Thursday. I remember because I just checked my phone to see how much longer until break, and instead I saw 3 missed calls from an unknown number. Turned out to be Terminal Security's office line trying to reach me before sending Paul. Never a good sign. My classification review was supposed to close out next month. Whatever this was, the timing couldn't be worse. Paul stopped about 10 feet away. The woman stayed back, watching me like I owed her money, and she was calculating interest. The yard noise around us, forklifts beeping, cranes humming, radio chatter from every direction, suddenly felt very loud. King, leave the tools. You need to come with us. I wiped my hands on a rag that was already past the point of usefulness. What's going on? Security office. Now. I'd started as a yard jockey, worked my way up to equipment tech. I maintained the RTGs, the reach stackers, the chassis handlers, everything that keeps more cargo moving than most people realize. I'd never been called to security for anything serious. Never had a complaint. Never missed a safety check. Whatever this was, it wasn't routine. 2 weeks earlier, I diagnosed a fault in an RTG that 3 other techs had missed. Traced it to a corroded relay buried behind a panel nobody checks, because the manual says it's maintenance-free. Paul put me in for a commendation. That's the kind of guy who was now being walked to security like a suspect. The walk across the yard felt longer than it should have. Longshoremen I'd known for years watched us pass. Guzman from the crane crew. Eddie, who ran graveyard. Ramon from security, who I played poker with twice a month. Nobody said anything, but I could feel the questions. The woman walked behind me like she was escorting a prisoner. My boots echoed on the concrete. Somewhere behind us, a container ship horn blasted twice. The security building was cold. They led me to a conference room with no windows. There was a folder on the table with my employee photo clipped to the front, my TWIC number written below it in black marker. Paul sat down across from me. The woman took the seat at the head of the table and finally introduced herself. Mr. King, I'm Deepa Patel, investigator with Terminal Security. Her voice was calm. She reminded me of that hitman in Collateral, the one who treats everything like it's just business. Detached, professional, dangerous in a way that doesn't require raising your voice. We have some questions about your TWIC card. My TWIC, I've got it right here. I reached for my wallet. We know you have one. That's not the issue. She opened the folder. The issue is that a credential registered to your name was used to sponsor visitor access at a restricted pier yesterday at 11:43 a.m. You weren't scheduled there. You weren't on any work order, and you never filed a visitor authorization. Something twisted in my gut. That's impossible. I didn't authorize any visitor access. She slid a photograph across the table. Grainy, pulled from security footage, but clear enough. A woman walking through a gate checkpoint with a temp badge clipped to her jacket. Dark hair. Expensive sunglasses. A face I'd been trying not to think about for 3 weeks. Kelsey, my ex-girlfriend. The woman I'd blocked on everything after she humiliated me at a company event. The woman who apparently decided the silent treatment wasn't enough and escalated to actual crimes. Do you recognize this woman? I didn't answer immediately. My brain was trying to process something so stupid, so reckless, so completely insane that it couldn't quite accept. It was real. Mr. King? Yeah, that's my ex-girlfriend. Ms. Patel's pen stopped moving. Your ex-girlfriend used your credentials to gain visitor access to a secure port facility. I didn't give her permission to do that. I didn't ask if you gave her permission. I'm telling you what happened. She pulled out another photograph. Kelsey wasn't alone. There was a guy with her. Tall, slick haircut, expensive suit. He was holding a phone up like he was recording something. Who's the man? No idea. Never seen him before. She used your credential number to get a visitor badge, brought an unauthorized individual inside with her, and they spent close to an hour in a restricted zone. Do you understand how serious that is? I understood. Unauthorized access violations aren't parking tickets. We're talking criminal charges, facility prosecution, the kind of stuff that ends careers and starts court cases. I didn't know she had my card. Then how did she get it? And that's when I realized the answer would either clear me or bury me. 3 weeks earlier, everything was still normal. Kelsey and I had been together about a year and a half, met at a friend's birthday thing in San Pedro. She worked for some boutique PR firm in LA. Pretty, ambitious, and had this way of making you feel like you were the most interesting person in the room. At least, that's how it started. My classification review was 2 months out. I was putting in extra hours, staying clean, doing everything right. And she was on my case about not being present enough in her life. I'm not going to pretend I didn't see the red flags. I saw them. I just convinced myself they were yellow, maybe orange at worst. I told myself everyone has quirks. Everyone has baggage. I was being mature by overlooking the small stuff. She'd get weird about my job sometimes. Not openly critical, just these little comments that stuck in your brain like splinters. Like when I'd come home smelling like diesel and she'd wrinkle her nose and ask if I could shower before sitting on the couch. Or when she'd introduce me to her work friends and say I was in logistics, instead of saying I fixed heavy equipment at the port. One time she joked that I should tell people I was in supply chain management because it sounded more serious. I laughed it off, thought she was just being helpful. The thing that blew everything up happened at an awards dinner her company organized. Some hotel ballroom in Marina del Rey. Chandeliers the size of my truck. Round tables with too many forks. People in expensive clothes congratulating each other for campaigns nobody outside that room had ever heard of. Kelsey insisted I come. Said it would be good for me to see her world. Said her boss would be there, and it was important for her career. I should have said no. I was tired. I'd worked a double the day before fixing a reach stacker that kept stalling mid-lift. My hands still had grease under the nails that I couldn't scrub out. But she'd been on my case about not being present in her life, so I went. The ballroom was packed. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog. I felt like an extra in a movie about people who matter, wandering around the background while the real characters had conversations. Her friends were there. The whole crew. Megan, who worked at the same PR firm and never remembered my name. Julia, who sold something to do with wellness and always talked like she was pitching a product. And this guy named Trent, who apparently owned a startup that did something with AI and real estate. He had that particular kind of confidence rich people have. Not earned, just assumed. They were standing near the drink station, and when I walked over with Kelsey, the conversation shifted. Megan gave me a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes. Julia glanced at my shoes and then looked away. Trent didn't bother pretending to notice me at all. He was telling some story about a property deal in Venice Beach, and everyone was nodding like he just explained gravity. The guy had soft hands and a watch that probably cost more than everything I owned, and I caught him checking his reflection in his glass. Twice. There he is, Kelsey said, looping her arm through mine. My hard-working man. What do you do again? Trent asked. He just wanted me to say it out loud so everyone could hear. Equipment tech at the port. Long Beach. The port? Julia tilted her head like I'd said something confusing. Like, shipping containers? Yeah. I maintain the cranes and yard equipment. Oh, she gave me a fake smile. That's hands-on. The conversation moved on like I hadn't spoken. Real estate prices. Influencer drama. A restaurant in Silver Lake with a 3-month waitlist. I stood there holding my drink, contributing nothing, feeling like a prop in someone else's life. The chandeliers suddenly felt less impressive and more suffocating. Then Megan made a comment about engagement rings. How her boyfriend was apparently shopping somewhere in Beverly Hills. How she expected something substantial because anything less would be embarrassing. What about you, Kels? Julia grinned, leaning in. Any hints from your guy? Kelsey laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. Please, you think a dock guy can afford what I'm looking for? The whole circle laughed. Trent snorted into his drink. Megan covered her mouth like it was too good. And Kelsey, my girlfriend, the woman I'd spent 18 months building something with, just smiled. Didn't correct herself. Didn't say she was joking. Just let it sit there like it was the most obvious truth in the world. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's sweet, she continued, warming to the audience. But let's be realistic. I'm not walking around with some half-carat thing from Costco. A girl has standards. More laughter. Then she patted my arm like I was a golden retriever who'd done a trick. Didn't even look at me while she did it. I set my glass down on the nearest table. Didn't say anything. Didn't make a scene. Just turned around and walked toward the exit. Heard Kelsey call my name once, but she didn't follow. I sat in my truck in the hotel parking garage for 20 minutes before I drove home. Didn't call her. Didn't text. Just drove. When I got home, I started packing up the stuff she'd left at my place. Clothes, a makeup bag, some books she never read. Took about an hour because she'd somehow spread her things through every room in my apartment. About 2 hours after I left the hotel, Kelsey showed up at my apartment. She still had the door code, let herself in while I was in the shower, and started doing what she always did when she sensed a fight coming, acting like nothing happened, tidying up, moving things around, trying to normalize the situation. I came out, told her we were done, and told her to get her stuff and leave. She cried, argued, told me I was overreacting. I wasn't interested. I stood in the kitchen doorway and waited while she packed a bag. She made multiple trips between rooms, grabbing things. At one point, she was in the kitchen for a minute, said she was looking for her phone charger. I was exhausted, running on no sleep and a lot of anger, and I wasn't exactly supervising her like a security checkpoint. I heard a drawer open, the junk drawer, the one where I kept old cards, spare keys, random paperwork. She said she was grabbing a hair tie. I was standing in the bedroom doorway with my arms crossed, just wanting her gone. I didn't walk over to check. She left around 1 a.m. I changed the door code first thing the next morning. What I didn't realize until weeks later was that during that time in the kitchen, she'd found my old TWIC card in that junk drawer. The card I'd replaced a few months earlier when I got my renewal. I'd kept it because I'm the kind of person who doesn't throw stuff away until I'm absolutely sure I don't need it. My dad was the same way. Receipts from 2003, old warranties, replaced cards, just in case. She must have snapped a photo of it or written down the credential number. Either way, she had what she needed, and I had no idea. Every day that credential number was compromised, and I didn't know, was a day closer to my classification review getting torched. After that night, she came back the next morning and pounded on the door for 10 minutes. New code stopped her. Left a voicemail through a friend's phone, calling me childish and dramatic and unable to take a joke. I didn't respond. 2 days later, she texted from another number, asking me to Venmo her $85 for her half of the anniversary dinner from 3 months ago. A dinner I'd paid for entirely, at a restaurant she picked. I didn't respond to that either. What I didn't account for was that Kelsey wasn't the type to accept being ignored. She was the type to escalate, and she was already holding the key to do it. 43 minutes inside a restricted zone. That's how long it takes to end 2 careers. The thing about my old TWIC card is that it wasn't expired yet. I'd renewed early. My new card came through a few weeks before the old one's expiration date. That overlap is standard, so you're never without valid credentials. But the old card's credential number still scanned as valid in the system until its expiration hit. I just wasn't carrying it anymore because I had the new one in my wallet. I should have surrendered the old card or cut it up. That's what protocol says. But I tossed it in the junk drawer and forgot about it because, honestly, who thinks their ex-girlfriend is going to photograph a port security credential? Here's what happened at the restricted pier. Kelsey pulled up to the visitor lane at a gate checkpoint with some guy in her passenger seat, told the guard she had a scheduled escort visit, gave my name and credential number as the sponsoring employee. She'd memorized it from the photo she took that night in my kitchen. Handed over her own driver's license for the temp badge. Said I was already inside waiting for her at Pier J. The gate was chaos that morning. A truck had thrown a code 2 lanes over, blocking traffic. Radios blaring dispatch calls. A supervisor sprinting across the checkpoint. Trucks backed up 20 deep, drivers laying on horns. Standard procedure is to call the sponsor, verify they've filed a visitor authorization, confirm they're on site. The guard punched in my credential number, saw it matched an active employee, but he was already 3 problems deep, so he skipped the verification call, printed her a temp visitor badge, logged the entry under my name as sponsor, and waved her through. It happens more than it should. When you're understaffed and the line's growing, sometimes you skip the verification step just to keep things moving. A human mistake, and Kelsey walked right through it. She brought a stranger into a restricted facility. They were told to wait near the gate office for their sponsor, but instead grabbed a couple of high-vis vests off a rack by the entrance and wandered into the yard. 2 people in vests don't pop visually when everyone's moving fast. They spent close to an hour shooting video of container yards that handle cargo from every corner of the planet. Kessler's lawyer turned the footage over during discovery, trying to cut his client a better deal. He'd filmed the yard operations, the crane movements, the container stacks, shot it like a nature documentary. Smooth pans, dramatic angles, voiceover about the hidden backbone of American commerce. The guy treated a secure facility like his personal film set. Even posed Kelsey in front of a gantry crane like it was a photo shoot, because the system eventually catches up. The gate log showed my credential number as the visit sponsor, but I'd never filed a visitor authorization and wasn't even assigned to that pier. When that mismatch hit the daily review, it triggered a flag. When they pulled the footage and saw 2 people in designer clothes walking around a secure area like they were location scouting, It triggered a lot more than a flag. Ms. Patel leaned back in her chair. So she had access to your apartment. She knew where you kept the old card. And she used it 3 weeks after you ended the relationship. That's what I'm telling you. You understand how that looks. Yeah, I understand how it looks. I felt my jaw tighten. But I'm telling you what happened. I didn't help her. I didn't know she took a photo of it. Ms. Patel studied me for a long moment. Her pen tapped against the folder 3 times. Then she closed it. We're going to need you to come back in tomorrow. Don't leave town. I walked out of that building knowing one thing. My career was now hanging on whether a stranger believed me over my ex-girlfriend. Administrative leave sounds like a vacation, until you realize you're the one being investigated. The investigation stretched into the next week. I was put on administrative leave, which meant I sat at home watching the walls, while Ms. Patel and her team pulled apart every detail of my life. Phone record, access logs, any communication I'd had with Kelsey in the past 6 months. My classification review was frozen. I'd wake up at 4:30 a.m. out of habit, get halfway dressed before remembering I had nowhere to go. By day 3, I was reorganizing my toolbox in the garage just to have something to do with my hands. By day 5, I'd rebuilt the garbage disposal, fixed a slow drain in the bathroom, and recaulked every window in the apartment. My neighbor knocked on my door and asked if I was renovating. I told him I was losing my mind. He laughed. I wasn't joking. Paul called me once to check in. Said the union was monitoring the situation, but couldn't do much until the facts were clear. Said I should sit tight and stay clean. Real helpful. When I came back to grab a tool I'd left in my locker, someone had written security risk on the door in black marker. Big letters. Impossible to miss. Ramon saw it when I did. Didn't say a word. Just called maintenance. Had it painted over within an hour. My buddy Javi showed up at my apartment the second night, despite me telling him not to come. He worked yard operations, drove tractors, knew everybody and everything that happened on the docks. So, let me get this straight, he said, sprawled on my couch, eating my chips. Your ex pulled a catch me if you can on terminal security? Just walked right in with a badge that wasn't even hers? Pretty much. That's unhinged. He shook his head. What are you gonna do? Tell the truth. Hope they believe me. You think they're gonna believe you? I didn't answer. I honestly didn't know. From the outside, the story looked bad. Ex-girlfriend uses my credentials right after a public breakup? That could look like revenge on her part, but it could also look like I helped her get in, and now I was covering my tracks. Javi read my expression. Look, man, Patel's thorough, but she's fair. If you didn't do anything wrong, she'll figure that out. Since when do you know so much about how investigators work? Since my cousin got caught stealing copper wire from a job site, and I watched the whole thing play out. He grabbed another handful of chips. Different outcome for him, but same energy. I laughed. First time in days. For real, though, Javi said, suddenly serious. I got your back. Whatever you need. I don't think perjury helps my case. Fine, but the offer stands. I can also lie about smaller stuff if that helps. Like, I can say you're a great guy. That's only a medium lie. He pulled out his phone. Also, I looked up the guy she brought in. His name's Brandon Kessler. Runs a channel called Supply Side Stories. Lists his sponsors right in his bio. Some logistics software company. Why does that matter? Because when that company finds out their brand guy got caught inside a restricted facility using stolen credentials, they're gonna cut ties fast. And Patel might want to know exactly who Kelsey was trying to impress. He showed me Kessler's channel. Guy had about 40,000 subscribers and a voice like a TED Talk speaker who'd watched too many Netflix docs. His content was all about disrupting supply chain transparency and pulling back the curtain on global trade. Every thumbnail had him standing in front of shipping containers looking serious. The comments were full of people calling him a visionary. I wanted to throw my phone into the ocean. By Wednesday, I'd gone through every possible scenario in my head. Best case, they believed me, I kept my job, and Kelsey faced consequences for what she did. Worst case, they didn't believe me. My port access got revoked permanently, and my career was over before I turned 30. They called me back in 3 more times that week, cross-referencing access logs, reviewing phone records, picking apart every detail of the timeline. Ms. Patel called me back in on Thursday for the final sit-down. Same conference room. Same cold air conditioning. This time there was a guy in the corner I didn't recognize. Older, gray hair, taking notes on a legal pad. We've completed our preliminary review, Ms. Patel said. We found no evidence you were aware of or complicit in the unauthorized access. I let out a breath. However, she paused. That word hung in the air. Your negligence in securing your credential created the opportunity for this breach. The old card should have been surrendered or destroyed per protocol. So what does that mean for me? Formal reprimand. Mandatory retraining on credential security. 6-month probationary period. One more incident and your credential privileges are revoked. And unofficially? Unofficially, you're lucky you're good at your job, and Paul went to bat for you. I nodded. It wasn't great, but it wasn't over. What about her? Something flickered in Ms. Patel's eyes. She's facing serious charges. Unauthorized facility access. Facilitating unauthorized entry of an unvetted individual. Recording in a restricted zone. The individual she brought, Brandon Kessler, is facing the same charges. The case got referred for prosecution. Good. Ms. Patel raised an eyebrow. That sounded personal. It is personal. She walked into my workplace with my stolen credentials to shoot content for some guy's channel. Javi told me later I should have kept that last part to myself. He was probably right. Some people can't accept when the game is over. They just keep playing until someone calls security. I went back to work the following Monday. My retraining deadline was in 3 weeks. Every shift felt like a test I couldn't afford to fail. Javi found me during lunch break, practically vibrating with excitement. Okay, so I heard something. Ramon said Patel told the gate guys to flag Kelsey's plates and notify her immediately if she shows up anywhere near the facility. That seems thorough. That's not thorough. That's personal. Javi's grin got wider. I respect it. 3 days later, I was running a diagnostic on an RTG crane at the north end of the yard when my radio crackled. King, you copy? It was Javi. He wasn't supposed to be on this channel. What are you doing on maintenance frequency? Dude, Southgate, right now. You're gonna want to see this. I shouldn't have gone. It wasn't my business anymore. The smart move was to stay at my station, finish my work, and let the system handle it. But I'm not always smart, and some things you have to witness. I drove one of the yard vehicles over to the gate area and parked behind a container stack where I could see without being seen. Javi was already there, leaning against a fence post, pretending to check something on his clipboard. Kelsey's car, her white BMW that she was so proud of, was stopped at the gate checkpoint. From what I pieced together later, she'd convinced some new guy she was dating that she had connections at the port and could get them a tour. Whether she actually believed she could talk her way back in or just wanted to prove she could still pull it off, I don't know. Either way, she drove right up to the gate like nothing had ever happened. I could see her through the windshield talking to the guard. Even from 50 yards away, I could tell she was using that voice. That particular tone she'd use when she wanted something from customer service. Sweet, but with an edge. The guard wasn't having it. He was on his radio, calling something in, face completely neutral. Kelsey kept talking, gesturing with her hands. The guy in the passenger seat, the new guy, not Kessler, looked deeply uncomfortable. Then a security SUV with terminal markings pulled up. Ms. Patel stepped out. She was wearing the same calm expression. She walked to Kelsey's window with a folder in her hand, posture relaxed, movements unhurried, like she had all the time in the world. I was too far away to hear what she said, but I saw Kelsey's body language change immediately, confident to defensive in about 2 seconds. She was arguing, explaining, justifying. Ms. Patel didn't argue back, just handed Kelsey the folder through the window and stepped back. Kelsey threw the folder on her dashboard. Even from this distance, I could see her face going red. She was yelling now, loud enough that I could hear the pitch even if I couldn't make out words. The guard moved closer to the vehicle, hand near his radio. A trucker waiting for his turn at the gate was leaning out his window, not even pretending he wasn't staring. Then Kelsey made a mistake. She opened her door and got out of her car. Like physical proximity would somehow change the math. 2 things happened fast. The guard stepped forward with his hand up, giving a clear verbal warning, and Ms. Patel said something short and quiet that stopped Kelsey mid-step. I found out later what it was. Something to the effect of, "Take one more step, and you'll be detained." Kelsey got back in her car. She sat there for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel hard. Her passenger was gesturing toward the exit, like he wanted to be anywhere else on the planet. She wasn't listening. A small crowd had gathered by now. 3 guys from morning crew, a couple of truckers, Ramon pretending to check something on his tablet while obviously watching the whole thing. Then she backed up, turned around with a screech of tires, and drove away. One of the truckers slow-clapped. Ramon looked up from his tablet and said, "Morning crew was going to be talking about this for weeks." Javi appeared beside me, grinning. "That was beautiful." "Yeah. You okay?" I started walking toward the yard vehicle. "Let's get back to work." Javi grabbed my arm. "Hold up. You're not about to go do something dumb, right?" "Like what?" "Like trying to find better footage, or talking to the gate guys, or anything that puts you back on Patel's radar." "Jared, you already won. She just got served in front of half the morning shift. Her new guy looked like he was calculating the fastest way to ghost her. Stay in your lane." He was right. I knew he was right. The fallout came fast after that. The new guy ghosted her within 3 days. Her firm put her on administrative leave, code for clean out your desk quietly. 2 clients dropped her the day after. She got formally terminated the following Monday. I heard that two of her biggest clients, a skincare brand and some wellness retreat company, put out statements distancing themselves before her firm even made the announcement. In PR, reputation is the product. Once that's gone, there's nothing left to sell. 17 months building that career, gone in 17 days. The next few weeks were quiet. I kept my head down, did my job, passed my retraining with flying colors, and tried to pretend everything was normal. Then the letter came. It was from a defense attorney, Kelsey's public defender, based on the case number. Very politely worded. Said they were exploring all avenues for their client's defense and requested a meeting to discuss my recollection of events. Specifically, the letter asked whether I'd be willing to provide a statement regarding the nature of shared access and understandings between Kelsey and me during our relationship. Shared access and understandings. That's lawyer for, can you say you maybe sort of gave her permission? I read it twice. The language was careful. Nothing in there explicitly asked me to lie, but the implication was obvious. They wanted me to muddy the water, say something vague enough that it could be spun into implied consent. I didn't respond to the letter. A week later, Kelsey showed up at my apartment building. Not at my door, she didn't have the new code, but in the parking lot, sitting on the hood of her BMW when I got home from work. We need to talk, she said as I got out of my truck. No, we don't. Jared, please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I kept walking toward the building entrance. I'm facing charges. Her voice cracked. Serious charges. I stopped walking. I made a mistake, a stupid, impulsive mistake, but you can help. You can tell them it was a misunderstanding, that I had your permission, that you want me to lie under oath. I want you to help me. I want you to remember that we spent 18 months together, and that has to mean something. Now I turned around. You called me a doc guy in front of your friends like it was a punchline. You broke into my apartment after I ended things. You stole my credentials, brought a stranger into a restricted facility, and now you want me to lie so you don't have to deal with the consequences. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was insecure and stupid, and I didn't appreciate what you... I don't care, she flinched. I really don't. Not anymore. You made your choices. Every single one of them. She stared at me for a long moment. Then her expression changed. You're going to regret this. I really don't think I am. I walked inside. The whole thing dragged out longer than I expected. Continuances, motions, rescheduled dates. The kind of slow grind that makes you understand why people say the legal system moves at its own speed. It was nearly 4 months from the day of the breach, before I got called in for the hearing that actually mattered. I'd been asked to provide a witness statement for the prosecution. The DA's office wanted my testimony to establish the timeline and confirm I hadn't authorized the access. My role was simple. Tell the truth. Answer the questions. Don't volunteer extra information. I was about halfway through my probationary period. Whatever happened in that courthouse would determine whether I had a clean record to go back to. I showed up and sat in the hallway waiting to be called. Courthouse downtown, all marble floors and high ceilings. Security checkpoint at the entrance, metal detectors, the whole thing. Kelsey was there too, sitting on a bench at the other end of the hall with her attorney, going over documents. She looked worse than the last time I'd seen her. Her lawyer got up and walked toward the restrooms. Kelsey stayed on the bench. Then she saw the bailiff step away from the door to talk to someone, saw the hallway momentarily clear. She got up and walked straight toward me, clutching a piece of paper. Her other hand held her phone at her side, screen facing me. I need you to look at something. She was standing too close, blocking my path to the courtroom door. She'd timed it. Back up, Kelsey. Just read it. It's not saying you gave me permission. It's just saying you don't object to a reduced charge. That's it. I noticed the phone angle. She wanted me on camera. Wanted me to say something she could use. Put the phone away. Her face flickered. Caught. I'm not recording. Put it away or I'm getting the bailiff. She lowered the phone, but she didn't move. I know you're not heartless, she said, dropping her voice. Please just back up, I said. Now. She hesitated just long enough to confirm what she was doing. It's not permission, she said fast. It's just you not objecting to a reduced charge. I'm not signing anything, I said. And I'm not giving you a quote you can clip. Her face tightened. The mask slipped. The bailiff clocked her standing in my space and started walking over. Ma'am, he said, voice flat. Return to your seat. Now. She stared at me like she was trying to find a crack. Then she turned and walked back before she got herself in even deeper. Her lawyer was coming back down the hallway, saw the scene, and his face fell. We need to go sit down, Kelsey, he said quietly. She walked back to her bench without another word. I got called in about 20 minutes later. Kelsey sat at the defense table staring straight ahead. She didn't look at me once while I was on the stand. Told the truth. Just the facts. Nothing extra. Answered the questions, confirmed the timeline, explained the credential situation, stepped down. The whole thing took maybe half an hour. Kelsey ended up pleading to lesser charges: 2 years probation, community service, permanent trespass ban from Port of Long Beach terminals and associated properties, plus a probation condition to stay away from any port facility, restitution payments that would follow her for years, and a conviction on her record that would show up on every background check for the foreseeable future. Brandon Kessler took a similar deal. His sponsors dropped him the day the charges were filed. His channel got nuked, not by the platform. He deleted it himself after the comments section turned into a roast. Somebody had screenshotted the charges and posted them under every video. 40,000 subscribers, gone overnight. Turns out, pulling back the curtain on global trade hits different when you did it with stolen credentials. Last I heard, he was working at his uncle's car wash in Riverside. Javi met me outside the courthouse with tacos from a truck he swore was the best in Long Beach. We sat in his truck in the parking lot, eating and not talking about anything important. "You good?" he asked eventually. "Yeah, that was a lot." "It was, but it's done now." He handed me another taco. We ate in silence for a while. Then we drove back toward Long Beach. The port lights were coming on in the distance, cranes silhouetted against the orange sky. Somewhere out there, containers were moving, ships were loading, and the whole machine kept running. My job was to keep it running. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. My family forgot to book my plane ticket and hotel for my sister's Hawaii wedding. Sorry, honey, it's all booked. Everyone went but me. I just said that happens and ghosted them for a year. Hey, Reddit. So my family decided I wasn't invited to my own sister's destination wedding. They just neglected to tell me until it was too late to do anything about it. Then they spent the entire reception turning me into the punchline. What they didn't know was that I'd been quietly documenting their behavior for years. Not because I'm paranoid, because when you're the designated family black sheep, you learn to keep receipts. This is what happens when you push someone out of the family photo and forget they know where all the skeletons are buried. The text came through at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. My sister Meredith had just sent the final wedding itinerary to the family group: flight details, hotel confirmations, shuttle schedules from the resort to the ceremony venue, emergency contact numbers for the wedding coordinator. Everything organized into a neat little PDF. I scrolled through it 3 times, looking for my name. Nothing. My first thought was, maybe there was a separate email coming. I'd mentioned possibly extending my trip by a few days to check out some hiking trails. So maybe my arrangements were being handled differently. Logical explanation. Made sense. By Wednesday morning, still nothing. So I called my mom. "Oh, Declan, honey." Her voice went syrupy sweet. Same tone she used when I was 12 and she forgot to pick me up from swim practice. "We forgot to book your seat and hotel room, and now everything's booked up. I'm so sorry." I heard laughter in the background. Multiple voices. Someone said something I couldn't quite catch. "Mom, this wedding has been planned for 16 months. How do you forget to book arrangements for your own son? These things happen, sweetie. It's not like you were in the wedding party anyway. Maybe you can watch the live stream?" Live stream. She actually suggested live stream, like I was some distant coworker who couldn't be bothered to show up. Not her son who'd driven 9 hours to be there when Meredith's first engagement imploded, who'd helped her move into 4 different apartments, who'd loaned her $3,000 when she was between jobs 2 years ago. Money I never asked about again because that's what family does. I, 34 male, and I'd learned to expect minimal effort from these people. But this was a new personal best. "Can't you call the resort? Explain the situation? Honey, it's peak season in Kauai. Everything's booked solid. Your father already tried." Something about her tone told me my father hadn't tried a single thing. I hung up and called Meredith. Despite everything, my sister and I had always been close. She was 2 years younger, and while our parents and brother openly treated me like the family disappointment, Meredith had usually been in my corner. "Mir, please tell me this is some kind of mix-up." "Declan!" she was whispering, which meant she wasn't alone. "I'm so sorry. I thought Mom and Dad handled your arrangements. They told me they had everyone covered. Everyone except me, apparently." While she talked, I pulled up Instagram on my laptop, started scrolling. And there it was. Cousin after cousin posting excited updates about their upcoming Hawaiian vacation for Meredith's wedding. Aunts, uncles, people I hadn't seen in years. All confirmed. All booked. "Even Bryce is going?" I asked, spotting my brother's post showing off his business class seat. The caption read, "Kauai bound for my baby sister's big day. Best man privileges hit different. Yes, Mom and Dad insisted he be there. You know how they are about." Her phone pinged. She said, "Hold on." Then my phone buzzed. Meredith had accidentally forwarded me a screenshot meant for her fiancé Jordan. It was from a family group chat, one I wasn't part of. The chat was titled Meredith's Wedding, Main Planning. The messages made everything click into place. Mom. Handled the Declan situation? Told him everything's booked up. Dad. Good. Last thing we need is him making a scene or embarrassing us in front of Jordan's family. Bryce. Did he buy it? Mom. Hook, line, and sinker. He won't be bothering us in Hawaii. Dad. Perfect. Now we can actually enjoy the trip without walking on eggshells. Bryce. Lowell, finally a family vacation without the drama. Should have done this years ago. I stared at those messages for 2 full minutes. Read them 4 more times. I'd expected rage, or maybe hurt. What I felt instead was just cold, like finally seeing proof of something you always knew but couldn't nail down. Declan? You still there? Meredith's voice sounded small. You need to explain this right now. I forwarded the screenshot back to her. Her gasp sounded genuine. Oh my God. I had no idea. I swear I thought you were included. They told me everyone was taken care of. I believed her, but that didn't make any of it easier to swallow. I called my father the next morning. Didn't bother with pleasantry. I saw the group chat. I know you deliberately didn't book my ticket or room. Long pause. Then he cleared his throat. Switched into his corporate voice. He runs a regional insurance brokerage. Loves pretending he's some kind of executive. Look, son. We thought the wedding would go smoother without you there. Jordan's family has some important business connections attending. We can't afford any incidents. Incidents? When have I ever caused an incident? The 4th of July 3 years ago. Your cousin's graduation party. Your temper, Declan. The way you get when you feel slighted. We're just being practical. Dad, at that 4th of July, you spent 45 minutes telling everyone my job was basically playing with computers for a living. You called my apartment a halfway house. You brought up my ex-girlfriend 4 separate times. And when I finally responded, suddenly I'm the one with the temper problem? I work as a systems administrator for a hospital network. It's not glamorous, but it pays well, and I'm good at it. To my father, anything that doesn't involve a corner office and business cards isn't a real career. See? This is exactly what I mean. You can't let anything go. And at the graduation, Bryce literally took credit for the gift I bought and wrapped. I have the Amazon order history. Always keeping score. Always building a case against everyone. This is why people find you exhausting, Declan. I sat on my couch, memories flooding back. Yeah, I'd gotten into arguments at family events. After hours of nonstop disrespect that nobody else seemed to notice or care about. In my family's twisted math, standing up for myself always equaled causing a scene. This is a new low, even for you. You'll get over it, my father said. You always do. That night, I went full detective mode. I called the resort directly, explained I was Declan, brother of the bride, and there seemed to be a mix-up with my reservation. The receptionist was sympathetic. I'm so sorry, sir, but we're completely booked for those dates. It's our busiest season. She paused, typing something. Actually, it looks like your sister's wedding party reserved a block of 30 rooms about 8 months ago. 30 rooms? Yes, sir. It's one of our larger events this year. 30 rooms. And somehow they forgot to book one for their own son and brother. I spent the next 2 days calling every airline with flights to Kauai. Searched Airbnbs, hotels, even considered sleeping in a rental car if I could just get there. Nothing worked. Between the wedding and spring break season, everything within a reasonable distance was legitimately full. I tried one more avenue, called Meredith back. What if I stayed with you? I could sleep on the floor. I don't care. I already suggested that. Her voice was tight. Jordan's parents said no. They're paying for the honeymoon suite as our wedding gift, and they don't want anyone else there. What about Bryce? Dad mentioned he got a suite with a living room. The silence told me everything. They won't even ask him, will they? Mom and Dad contributed $6,000 toward Bryce's trip, she finally admitted. They said it was important for him to be comfortable since he's giving a speech. $6,000. The same parents who told me 3 months ago they couldn't help with my flight because they were stretched thin. The same parents who swore they were handling everyone's arrangements equally. Then came the last nail in the coffin. One of my cousins posted a photo from her Hawaii-bound flight. Thanks, Uncle and Auntie, for the surprise upgrade to first class. #BestCousinWedding. She had been given my hotel room and a first-class upgrade. The everything's booked excuse was another lie. They'd deliberately given away my spot to her. When I called my mother to confront her about my cousin's room, her mask finally slipped. You've always been so sensitive, Declan. This isn't about you. It's about giving Meredith the perfect wedding without worrying about your feelings getting hurt over every little thing, or you getting into one of your moods. Why can't you just think about someone else for once? In their heads, I was the selfish one for wanting to be at my own sister's wedding. I was the bad guy for being upset about getting cut out on purpose. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. If they wanted me gone so badly, I'd give them exactly what they wanted. But not just from the wedding, from everything. Saturday morning, I made coffee, set up my laptop on my kitchen table, and logged into the private livestream link Meredith had texted me with another apology. The camera showed an outdoor venue overlooking the ocean, white chairs in perfect rows, a floral arch with the Pacific stretching out behind it, guests filtering in wearing linen suits and sundresses. I watched faces I hadn't seen in years take their seats. Cousins from Ohio, my dad's golf buddies, my mom's book club crew, extended family who'd barely spoken to Meredith in a decade, all of them flown out on the family dime, while I sat alone in my apartment 3,000 miles away. Then I noticed it. Front row next to my parents, there was an empty chair with a place card. Declan. The planner fussed with it like it mattered, then stepped back and acted like it was totally normal. Meredith probably insisted I have a seat, because she still had that maybe he'll show hope. My parents didn't fight it. An empty chair looks tragic and classy, and it lets them do the sad saint routine later. We saved him a spot. It also makes my absence look like my choice, not theirs. Perfect optics, zero effort, maximum control. The ceremony started. My dad walked Meredith down the aisle. She looked beautiful, but even through the screen, I could see her eyes dart to that empty chair as she passed. Her smile faltered for half a second. During the vows, my mother dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, full performance mode. My father sat beaming in the front row, while Bryce stood tall next to Jordan at the altar, both sides of my family looking like a stock photo of the perfect supportive unit. After the ceremony, my phone started blowing up with tagged posts. Such a beautiful ceremony. Wish you could have made it, Declan. Missing you today, cousin. Family isn't complete without you. The fake concern was almost impressive. They were creating a public narrative that I'd chosen not to come, or couldn't afford the trip, or was too unstable to travel. No one acknowledged the truth. A different cousin, one of the few family members who'd always genuinely been in my corner, texted me separately. This is messed up. I know what they did. I'm recording some of this so you can see how they're acting. The videos she sent over the next few hours told the real story. During the reception, my father stood up to toast. He did the glass tap thing, like he'd been waiting all night to be the main character. Before I start, he said, smiling like a politician at breakfast, we did save a seat for Declan. He couldn't make it. He let that hang just long enough for people to do the sad nod. Then he added, casual as a paper cut, probably for the best. Big events can be a lot. A few people chuckled. Not roaring laughter, more that polite, we don't know the story, but we'll follow your lead noise. Then he launched into the safe, sentimental stuff. All scripted, all clean tonight. My cousin's videos kept coming throughout the night. Bryce's speech included a line about being the brother who actually shows up when it matters. My mother told a guest, loud enough for the phone to pick up, Declan was just so jealous of all the attention Meredith's getting. You know how he is. He's always been the difficult one. My father's golf buddy, someone I'd helped move furniture last summer for free, was caught saying, some people just can't be happy for others, you know? It's almost clinical at this point. The last stunt came late in the reception, when the photo booth crowd got restless for group shots. They had the usual goofy props, and somebody printed my face on a stick from an old Facebook pic. One of my aunts waved it around like she'd invented comedy. Now Declan's here, she announced. People took turns posing with it. Smirks, fake conversations, mean kid improv. One of Bryce's friends pantomimed me ranting at the camera. My cousin texted, they're telling everyone you refused to come because you were jealous, that you're having emotional problems again. I tried to defend you, but nobody's listening. I closed my laptop. Something clicked that night. The hurt didn't go away. It just got cold and quiet. If they wanted to create a narrative about me being absent, I'd give them an absence they'd never forget. The Monday after the wedding, I woke up and everything was crystal clear. This wasn't some emotional meltdown. This was 34 years of being treated like garbage finally adding up. I needed a clean break, and I needed to do it right. My company's Denver office had been trying to poach me for months. Our hospital network was expanding there, and they needed someone who understood the existing systems. I'd always said no because Denver meant leaving everyone I knew. That reason no longer applied. Family situation, I told my manager when she asked about the sudden interest. She didn't push. HR had me set up within 3 weeks. I gave notice on my apartment, month-to-month lease. Started researching places in Denver, focusing on buildings with good security, and no paper trail connecting to my current address. But here's where it got complicated. My mother had me listed as an authorized user on one of her credit cards from years ago, supposedly for emergency. I'd never used it, but I realized she could potentially track my spending if I wasn't careful. I closed that connection first. Then I discovered my father still had access to my location through a family phone plan I'd forgotten we shared. I'd been paying my own bill for years, but the account was technically still in his name. Switching carriers took 3 days and 2 trips to the phone store because the first rep couldn't figure out how to port my number without alerting the account holder. New bank accounts came next. Regional credit union my family had never heard of, with electronic statements only. P.O. box in a neighboring zip code for anything I actually needed mailed. Closed all social media and created new accounts under slightly different name variations. Deck instead of Declan. Profile pictures that didn't show my face clearly. My car needed new brakes 3 days before I was supposed to leave. $800 I hadn't planned on spending. The mechanic told me I was lucky I caught it before the cross-country drive. I didn't feel lucky. I ended up selling most of my furniture at a loss and shipping what I actually needed via UPS. Cost twice as much and took twice as long as the moving company would have. Nothing about this exit was clean or easy, but every obstacle just proved I was making the right choice. If leaving was this hard, imagine how hard staying would have been. Meanwhile, the family fallout arrived right on schedule. 3 days after the wedding, my mother texted, "You could at least acknowledge the lovely ceremony. Meredith is hurt by your silence." I didn't respond. Next day, "Stop being childish, Declan. You're making Meredith's honeymoon all about you again." From my father, "Man up and call your sister. This silent treatment is pathetic." Bryce, "Way to make her special day all about your drama." Classic. I read each message like I was watching someone else's life. Funny how fast they went from fake concern to ticked off when I didn't do my usual thing of apologizing for having feelings. By week 2, the tone changed. My mother left voicemails about being worried about my mental health. My father mentioned reaching out to the police if I didn't respond. Bryce suggested I was having another episode. Not one of them acknowledged their role in any of this. Meredith's messages were different. Genuinely concerned. "Please just let me know you're okay. Whatever happened, we can work through it." I broke my silence only for her. One text, "I'm fine. Need space. We'll contact you when ready." The night before I left, I got a knock on my door at 11 p.m. My mother standing in the hallway, having driven 3 hours because I wasn't answering my phone. "Declan, this has gone far enough. Whatever point you're trying to make." "I'm not making a point. I'm making a choice." "A choice? To punish everyone who loves you because your feelings got hurt?" I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who deliberately excluded me from my sister's wedding, then spent the reception turning me into a joke, was now standing at my door playing the concerned mother. "I watched the reception videos, Mom. My cousin sent them to me." Her face did about 3 different things before landing on offended. "That was just family humor. You know your father's sense of, 'I'm moving, tonight actually. Don't look for me.'" I closed the door, locked it, finished loading the last box into my car. By 6 a.m., I was on the road to Denver, leaving behind everything familiar. It should have felt terrifying. Instead, it felt like the first real decision I'd made in years. 4 months in Denver, and I barely recognized my life. The new job was going better than expected. When you're not constantly drained from family chaos, you actually have energy to focus on your work. I took on a major server migration project that had been delayed for over a year because nobody wanted to deal with the complexity. Finished it in 8 weeks. I joined a hiking group, made actual friends, people who knew me only as I was now, not who my family had labeled me to be. Started dating a physical therapist named Vivian. For the first time, I was in a relationship where I didn't feel like I had to constantly explain or apologize for my family situation. But I wasn't just building a new life. I was also building a system. My cousin's updates kept coming, though less frequently as my family's urgency about finding me started to fade. The narrative had shifted. "Now they're saying you're finding yourself and they're giving you space," she reported. Like this was their idea all along. Classic. But the family didn't stop looking. They just got more creative. Month 5, I got an email from a recruiter asking about job opportunities. The email address was a Gmail created 2 days earlier. The recruiter's name was an anagram of my brother's name. Bryce never was particularly clever. I reported the email as spam and moved on. Month 6, a private investigator showed up at my old apartment building asking questions. Except it was actually my father's golf buddy, the same one who'd called me almost clinical at the wedding. My old neighbor recognized him from a barbecue I'd hosted the previous summer and sent me a heads up. My neighbor told him I'd moved to Portland, which was a lie, but he apparently believed it and spent a week calling Portland area hospitals trying to find someone who worked with me. I bought my neighbor a gift card for covering my tracks. Month 7, my mother tried to file a missing person report. The police called me directly since my new address was in my updated driver's license. Apparently, she'd claimed I was at risk and potentially dangerous to myself. Awkward conversation with the officer, but they closed the case immediately once they confirmed I was alive, employed, and choosing not to communicate with my family. The officer actually apologized for wasting my time. Said it happens more often than people think. Families trying to use law enforcement to force contact with adult relatives who want to be left alone. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from an attorney claiming to represent my parents in a wellness check matter. The letter demanded I provide proof of stability, including employment records, housing documentation, and personal references. I showed it to a lawyer friend who laughed and said it had zero legal standing. Sent a one-sentence reply declining to participate. Never heard from them again. Then came month 8. My cousin forwarded me an email chain from the family. My father had been diagnosed with a heart condition, supposedly triggered by stress over my disappearance. My mother was planning a family gathering to support each other during this difficult time. I called my cousin directly. "What's the real story?" "Your dad's fine," she said. "I saw him at the club last week playing 18 holes. When I mentioned the heart thing, he actually laughed and said sometimes family needs a little motivation to come together." There it was. A fake health scare to drag me back home. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost insulting. "There's something else," she added. "Your mom's been telling people you have a substance problem, that you disappeared to go to rehab. I don't even take aspirin." "I know, but it's working. People feel sorry for them now. Poor them, dealing with such a troubled son." I thanked her for the heads up and kept doing my thing. The peace I had in Denver told me everything I needed to know. Month 9, things shifted again. Meredith called. First real conversation since I'd left. "Jordan and I are separating," she said, voice raw. "Remember those screenshots you sent me before you moved? The family chat? It made me start paying attention to how his family operated. Same patterns, same rigid roles. The wedding pressure just magnified everything." She explained that Jordan's family functioned exactly like ours. Same blame one person for everything energy. Same obsession with looking perfect. Once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it. "I'm not saying it's permanent," she clarified. "We're both in counseling, but for the first time, I'm actually prioritizing what I need over what everyone expects." We started talking regularly after that, rebuilding something real. Month 10, I got an unexpected call. My grandmother, my father's mother, who'd essentially vanished from family life when I was a teenager. "I heard about what happened," she said without preamble. "My granddaughter told me everything. I wanted you to know you're not the first one they've done this to." Turns out the family dynamics didn't start with me. My father had been the golden child in his generation. His brother had been the scapegoat. My grandmother had tried to intervene and got labeled difficult and gradually frozen out. "Your father learned it from watching your grandfather," she explained. "And your mother came from a family with similar patterns. They reinforced each other. It goes back generations on both sides." Talking to her filled in blanks I didn't even know were there. What happened to me wasn't personal. It was just how this family worked. Different generations, same playbook. A few weeks later, Meredith called with news about their 35th anniversary party. "They're calling it a healing gathering," Meredith said. "Mom's been telling everyone it's about bringing the family back together." Let me guess. The unspoken theme is getting me to fall back in line. Our cousin says there's a whole plan. Dad's calling it an intervention. I'd been expecting something like this. 11 months of silence clearly wasn't getting them what they wanted. So they were stepping it up. What exactly are they planning? Meredith had been quietly documenting things since our conversation started. It was one of the changes I'd seen in her. She'd stopped automatically defending family behavior and started actually looking at it. They've assigned roles. Dad's the voice of reason. Mom's the wounded mother. Bryce is supposed to contrast his reliability against your instability. Various cousins and aunts are lined up to share concerns about your behavior over the years. So a coordinated character assassination disguised as concern. Essentially, our uncle isn't invited, by the way. Grandma either. Just the people who'll play along. I thought about it for a full week. Old me would have either skipped it or shown up ready to fight, which is exactly what they wanted. But I wasn't that guy anymore. "I'm going to go," I told Meredith. "Are you sure?" "They're going to..." "I know exactly what they're going to do. That's the point." I spent the next 3 weeks getting ready. First, I organized everything I documented over the years. Screenshots, recordings, timestamps, financial records showing how differently they treated me versus Bryce, text messages, social media posts. Not to use as weapons, but as evidence. Second, I did some digging on my family's business stuff and professional connection. My father's insurance brokerage had some interesting client relationships I'd noticed over the years. Bryce's construction company had contracts with several municipal entities that had specific ethical requirements. My mother's position on her hospital's auxiliary board came with certain professional standards. I wasn't planning to destroy anyone. but I wanted to know what cards I had if they tried to take things further. Third, I called my grandmother. I want you there, I told her. Whatever happens, they won't want me. They don't get to decide who I bring. She laughed. First time I'd ever heard her sound genuinely happy about something family related. The night before the gathering, my cousin called with final intel. They're planning to present you with a list of conditions for rejoining the family. Regular check-ins, supervised visits, mandatory counseling, but only with a therapist they approve, and written apologies to various family members for your behavior over the years. Written apologies. Bryce apparently drafted a template. Of course he did. One more thing, she added. Your mom's been telling everyone you might be unstable enough to get violent. She's arranged for one of your other uncles to be ready to intervene if you have an episode. They were laying groundwork to physically remove me if I didn't submit, preparing witnesses who'd confirm I was the aggressor if anything went wrong. So I switched up my approach. The day of the gathering, I arrived 45 minutes early, parked down the street, walked in before most people arrived, while my parents were still fussing over appetizer arrangements. My mother saw me first. Her face did shock, then panic, then this fake warmth thing. Declan, you came early. We weren't expecting, we're so glad. Hello, Mother. Happy anniversary. My father appeared from the kitchen, glass in hand. His face went through similar gymnastics. Son, good to see you. The words came out like he was reading from a script he hadn't fully memorized. Dad. The next 20 minutes were wild to watch. Family members filtered in, each one visibly startled to see me already there. Their whole plan depended on me walking into a room full of people already primed against me. Showing up early messed with their setup. Bryce showed up last, saw me, and immediately huddled with my father in the corner. Lots of urgent whispering. My grandmother arrived shortly after, which caused another wave of She wasn't supposed to be here. That threw another wrench in their plans. By the time dinner started, their whole coordinated thing was already falling apart. People kept shooting glances at each other, clearly unsure whether to proceed with the plan or improvise. I kept things light. Asked about jobs, kids, vacations, completely normal behavior. Every normal conversation I had chipped away at their whole he's unstable story. After dinner, my father tapped his glass. Now that we're all comfortable, I think it's time we address why we're really here. He fixed me with his stern gaze. Declan, your behavior over the past year has caused this family tremendous pain. We've all been affected by your choices. Here it came, right on schedule. We've compiled a list, he continued, producing typed pages. Instances where your behavior has been problematic, dating back to when you were a teenager. We thought it might help you understand the patterns others see that you apparently don't. One by one, family members contributed their pieces. Every time I'd stood up for myself was labeled aggressive. Every boundary I'd set was selfish withdrawal. Even being excluded from the wedding was somehow evidence of my instability. Bryce spoke about the burden of being the responsible brother. A bunch of aunts chimed in with their rehearsed little stories. Throughout it all, I stayed silent, made eye contact with each speaker, poker face. You could see them squirming. They'd expected defensiveness, anger, maybe a breakdown that would confirm their diagnosis. Me just sitting there calm and quiet threw them off completely. Finally, my father concluded, so we've all agreed. If you want to be part of this family going forward, there need to be conditions. He produced another document. The conditions my cousin had warned me about. Regular check-ins, supervised visits, approved counseling, written apologies, and, this was new, financial restitution for the emotional burden I'd placed on the family. The room fell silent, all eyes on me. I took a slow sip of water, set down my glass. Thank you all for sharing. I've listened to everything. Now I'd like to respond. Protest started, but I raised my hand. I listened without interrupting. Same courtesy, please. What followed took 15 minutes. I started with facts. Documented proof of every incident they'd listed, with the actual context they conveniently left out. Screenshots and timestamps proving the wedding exclusion was deliberate. The group chat messages. The financial records showing Bryce had received over $40,000 in family support over the past 5 years while I'd been told they were stretched thin. Then I hit them with the patterns. Showed how every time I'd objected to mistreatment, the family had coordinated to reframe my objection as the problem. How the same tactics were used on my uncle 20 years ago. How my grandmother had been frozen out for noticing the same things I'd noticed. I ended with the reception videos from the wedding, played them on my phone, loud enough for everyone to hear. My father's jokes, my mother's fabrications, the face on a stick bit. The room was very quiet. I'm not looking for apologies, I said, and I'm not asking for anything to change. I just wanted everyone here to see exactly what's been happening, documented so well that nobody could spin it. Whatever you choose to do with this information is your business, but the family narrative about me ends today. I stood up. One more thing. Every document I've referenced tonight exists in multiple secure locations. If anyone decides to escalate this, professionally, legally, socially, I'll respond in kind. I'd rather not, but I want that understood. I looked directly at my father. He'd gone pale. Happy anniversary, I'll see myself out. The fallout wasn't immediate. It was gradual, and it was largely self-inflicted. Within weeks of the gathering, the family drama started leaking into places they couldn't control. Extended relatives who'd witnessed the intervention started talking. Old family friends who'd watched the dynamics for years finally felt safe saying what they'd observed. The whole perfect family act was starting to crack. The first real domino fell when one of my father's biggest insurance clients, a regional hospital network, caught wind of the situation through a compliance officer who'd seen the social media fallout. Benefits departments do vendor checks at renewal time, and someone had forwarded the reception video in a work group chat. They started asking questions about the character of the broker handling their employee benefits contracts. I didn't initiate this. I didn't have to. I just made sure the publicly available information was easy to find for anyone who went looking. And when people asked me directly, I didn't lie or play dumb. His contract came up for renewal 3 months later. They went with a different broker. Lost account worth roughly $200,000 annually in commissions. The second domino, Bryce's construction company. Remember those municipal contracts with ethical requirements? One of them included a clause about maintaining professional standards of personal conduct for primary stakeholders. Bryce had posted some things on social media over the years that, when compiled together, painted a pattern that certain government officials found concerning. Bid evaluations are petty and paperwork heavy, and procurement folks don't like headlines, even secondhand ones. Again, I didn't file any complaints. I didn't contact anyone directly. I simply made sure his public posts were saved where anyone could find them. When his contract came up for rebid, his competitors had access to the same information anyone else did. He lost 2 of his 3 municipal contracts over the next 6 months, had to lay off 4 employees. The third domino, my mother's hospital board position. The auxiliary board had standards of conduct requirements. One of the other board members, who I'd never met, happened to see the Facebook drama and recognized my mother's name. Hospital auxiliary boards run on gossip and image, and she'd handed them a story they could verify in 5 minutes. She'd apparently been claiming at board meetings that her son was in recovery and that the family was dealing with mental health challenges. When it became clear that story was fabricated for sympathy, her reputation on the board tanked. She wasn't removed, but she was quietly moved from chairing committees to basically just showing up with no actual responsibilities. After that, more people stopped returning their calls. Invitations dried up. The social circle they'd spent decades building started keeping its distance. Throughout all of this, I didn't make a single phone call, didn't file a single complaint, didn't send a single anonymous tip. I just stopped protecting them from the consequences of their own behavior, stopped keeping family secrets, stopped pretending everything was fine. That was the nuclear option they never saw coming. I didn't blow anything up. I just stopped covering for them and let the truth do the work. The last face-to-face went down 9 months after the anniversary gathering. My father requested a meeting. Neutral location. Just the 2 of us. We met at a coffee shop near the airport. His choice, though I suspected he picked it so he could bail quick. He looked older, tired. The past year had clearly taken a toll. I'm not going to apologize, he said immediately. I don't think I was wrong to want to protect your sister's wedding. I know, but I underestimated you. He looked at his coffee cup. I didn't think you had it in you. The organization, the follow-through, the patience. That's the thing about scapegoats, Dad. We get really good at keeping records because nobody else is going to back us up. Is this what you wanted? Watching the family fall apart? The family falling apart isn't my doing. It's just what happens when the whole thing was held together by one person eating garbage so everyone else could play happy family. I stopped doing that. He didn't have a response to that. What do you want? He finally asked. Seriously, what would it take for this to stop? Stop what? I haven't done anything except tell the truth and decline to attend events where I'll be mistreated. If the truth is damaging, that's not my fault. The truth, he almost laughed. You've always been obsessed with your version of the truth. My version has receipts. Yours has 30 years of people being afraid to contradict you. We sat in silence for a while. Your grandmother, he said finally. She's been calling people, telling stories about when I was younger, things I thought were forgotten, things that are apparently relevant now. He looked at me directly for the first time. Did you plan all of this? From the beginning? I shook my head. I planned to disappear and build a life where I wasn't constantly being undermined. Everything that happened after was just consequences, finally landing in the right places. Consequences. Actions have them. Even actions you thought you got away with. He stood up. Our meeting was over. I don't know if this family can recover from what you've done, he said. What I've done is tell the truth. If the family can't survive truth, it was never healthy to begin with. He left. I finished my coffee. 6 weeks later, Meredith called with an update. Mom's stepping down from the board. Dad's talking about early retirement. Bryce is trying to sell his company to a competitor before things get worse. How do you feel about all of it? She was quiet for a moment. Honestly, relieved. For the first time in my life, I don't have to pretend everything's fine. The Emperor has no clothes and everyone finally sees it. And us? We're good. I could hear her smiling through the phone. Better than we've ever been, actually. You're the only one who ever treated me like a person instead of a prop. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.